Okay, we're getting ready to start Unit 1, which is the first unit on foundations of American government. But I just wanted to show you something here left over from the media unit, the last part of the media in Unit 5 that I didn't get a chance to show you. So this is causes of the death in America, and what Americans die from, what they search for on Google, and what the media reports on. So you can see on the left-hand side here that this is what actually people die from in 2016. Heart disease, 30%, cancer, about 30, road incidents, low respiratory. And you get all the way down to the bottom, and like it's a little line right above causes of death. And you'll see homicide, so like being shot, killed, or murdered in some way, 0.9% of the population die from that. And terrorism is 0.01%. So not even a tenth of 1%. It's like a hundredth of 1% die from terrorism. So that's how people died. And then the second column shows Google searches. You can see people, search a lot for cancer, road accidents, diabetes, suicide, and then terrorism, 7%, homicide, 3.2. But then look on the right-hand side. This is media coverage, New York Times and The Guardian. And these are two major publications. The Guardian's more, British owned, but the New York Times obviously being the major newspaper of record that most of the mainstream media like CBS, NBC, CNN, all those, they kind of use the New York Times to like inform what they're going to cover. And you can see like it just stands out massively. Terrorism and homicide are like almost 60% of all coverage. Suicides, obviously by like major famous people, cover another 10%. So you're taking darn near 70% of all the coverage are things that make up less than 3% of all deaths. Yet when news media covers deaths of any sort, they cover 70% on something that makes up less than 3% of the population dying from it. So it just shows you the distortion. And obviously part of that has to do with just getting ratings, getting clicks, and people are interested. And you're driving on the highway and you see an accident and you turn your head and look. So this just should again show you that media coverage is very filtered in a way that's not accurate. And that's not even talking about media bias in a liberal sense. I'm just talking about media bias in a like reality sense. All right, cool. All right, so don't write anything on the next card, but you don't have to write this, but Unit 1, Foundations. We're doing ideals of democracy to start. This is foundations, like all the stuff that makes up like why our Constitution is the way it is, why our system of government is the way it is. So grab 5 cards. You need 5 cards. If you need to slow down, you can always pause it. Ready? Here we go. Number 1. 1.1, first card, limited government. This is a democratic ideal in American government. Go ahead and pause it if you need to write it before you hit play. All right, democratic ideal. Just think when you think of democracy, what do I mean by that? Democratic. We just mean like people voting. I'm not talking about the Democrat Party. I'm not talking about the Democrat Party ideal. I just mean like a general democracy ideal, like something that we all believe in. Hey, people should get to choose. That's all we're talking about. Second, limited government means a system of government where power of government is restricted by law or a written constitution. So government just can't do anything it wants at any time it wants. There's the ability of people to sue the government if rights are violated. Government is limited somehow. It just doesn't have total power. So, and usually this is through a written constitution. And of course, that's the way our system works. I'm going to move on. So if you need to, pause. 3, 2, 1. Moving on. All right, 1.2, natural law. Natural rights, I should say. It is called natural law at times, but natural rights. So think of like natural, nature. Natural rights are rights that we get by just being somebody, just by being born. And matter of fact, the idea behind natural rights, flip over. One, it's a democratic ideal. Again, not democratic in a Democrat Party sense, but democratic in a like, hey, people have a right to choose. This is something that's a democratic ideal and has been for hundreds of years. And the idea is that you have rights that you're born with. Like as soon as you're born, you have these rights. They are God-given and that government can't take them away. The idea in our founding that rights were God-given was important because the idea was that if God gave them to us, then therefore no one could take them away. And certainly not the government. And also, there's another idea behind this is that if government gave you rights, then government can take away your rights. But these are rights that you can't take away. And the classic rights are life, liberty, and property. And I put them in quotes. You probably heard it as life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. But the original writer of these ideas said life, liberty, and property. And we will actually read that person's ideas in the next lesson. So life, liberty, property. Cool. Second card, done. If you need more time to write, hit pause. 1.3, social contract. A social contract. A contract's an agreement between parties. A contract is an agreement between individuals. A contract is an agreement between an individual and a group of people. Social contract means all of us, like society. So it's like a contract the society makes. Flip over. This is a democratic ideal. And the idea is, again, pause if you need more time. It's an agreement between people and the government. So those are the parties involved: the people, society, and the government, in which the citizens consent to be governed. It's an agreement. It's a contract between us and our government. And the citizens consent. Our part of this contract is that we consent to be governed. Like, we give permission to have laws made that govern us. If we violate that, we can lose our rights. We could go to prison. Or even lose our life, as the case may be. And then the second part is, what's the government's role in this? So we have to be governed. We have to follow law. The government must protect our natural rights. So agreement, contract. The people side of that contract says, hey, you consent to be governed. You must follow the law that's made. And then we say, okay, we'll do that. But the government has to protect our natural right. And that's to life, liberty, and property. That's a social contract. Lastly, an example of a social contract is our Constitution. Our Constitution is a social contract. It's like the classic one. If you need more time, pause. Republicanism. Now, just like democratic ideals earlier, we're not talking about the Republican Party. This isn't republicanism in because you believe in republicanism, you think Trump is a great president. I'm not talking about that. This is republicanism in a lowercase r, not big R, which is the party. This is lowercase r. It's a general ideal. Okay, so backside, it is a democratic ideal. And it's a very simple idea. One, if you notice, the root word is republic. I put it back to that so you see that. Republic. And a republic means that you don't vote on everything. It's not like a pure democracy where everybody's voting on everything. A republic means that we elect representatives. Representatives, republic. Representatives in a republic. And they vote on our behalf. So we don't vote on everything. We elect people to vote for things. That's what a republic is, and we are that. All right, so it's the principle that elected leaders, our representatives, represent the will of the people. So when we elect people, they're supposed to kind of do the policy that we want. How do they know what we want? Through linkage institutions like the media and elections and parties and interest groups. They find out what we want, and then they're supposed to follow our will. And if they don't, then we'll vote the freaking bums out. Put some new bums in. So that's republicanism. Again, nothing to do with the party. Last card, 1.5. Popular sovereignty. Now, I want you to underline the word popular. Make an arrow. When we say popular, in this case, we mean the people, the population. Okay, the people. Write the word sovereignty. Underline it. The root word of sovereignty is sovereign. The king used to be called the sovereign, and that just meant he was the power. So a sovereignty means power. So literally popular sovereignty means people power. The people have power. That's what popular sovereignty is. People have power. So flip over. It's a democratic ideal. Number 2, it's a principle. The ultimate power resides in the consent, meaning permission, of the people. So the people ultimately have power. ultimate power is not in the president. If the president had ultimate power, that means the person who's president could violate our rights. The ultimate power is not in Congress, because if the ultimate power was in Congress, they could violate our rights. The ultimate power is not in the Supreme Court, although I sometimes think they are the ultimate power. But the ultimate power, ultimately, when you get right down to it, is in the people. And how do we show that we have ultimate power? We consent by voting. We give consent to the government by voting. And by the way, you may say, well, what if I don't vote? You still consent. That's your problem. You don't vote, you just have no right to complain. But you still give your consent. In fact, by not voting, you're kind of saying, I like how things are. What if the other side wins? You still gave your consent. Somebody loses. Majority wins, majority rule. That doesn't mean the majority has the right to violate your rights. That's why we have a limited government, to make sure your rights aren't violated. That's why we have natural rights that can't be violated. But you still are consenting, even if you're in the minority in terms of you lost an election or you didn't vote at all. You still have given your consent. All right, so that's the idea of popular sovereignty. Cool. All right, so this is what I want you to do. Take those 5 cards and study them. Take like a few minutes and study them. Turn them over, try to say what they are, turn it over, and see if you're right. Do it again. Do that a couple times. Second, you're going to go grab this sheet. The sub may have already passed it out, but you need the sheet. And if you don't have this sheet because you're doing this at home, you have to get one from me. And I want you to spend some moments filling the top, using the terms at the top. When you're done with that, double check your index cards, make sure you got it right. Then go down to the bottom part. And I have quotes from the Declaration or the preamble. And you're going to put like which one you think fits. Now, let me just say, you could debate a couple of them. So you're looking for like which one fits best. Now, the sub has an answer sheet. So when you do the bottom part, you can double check with the sub and see if it's right. If you're doing this at home, you'll have to check with me or email me and ask for it, and I will share it with you. And so notice the quotes like, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. Which principle is that talking about? And then write it in. By the way, you might use pencil in case you screw up. And secondly, notice it says, note, you will not use Republicanism. So it says right there, you will not use Republicanism. So remember that. All right, very, very cool. When you're done with that, one more thing. Go to my site and you will see number 1 under Wednesday the 6th, it says Ideals of Democracy. That's a quiz. You need to take that quiz. So number 1, Ideals of Democracy, take the quiz. And you can do it a couple times if you needed to, but you should get it right. All right, thank you. Make sure you do that. Bye.